All right, so I'd just like to take a little bit of time here today to share with you what it is that we do here. This office, I realize, is not for everybody. And I just think it makes sense to share with you what it is that we do. And by the way, what we do here, we're really good at. But this office is not for everybody. So let's go ahead and get into it here and share with you, what we do, what chiropractic really is all about. Because the reality of it is as a profession, we've done a really poor job of teaching people what it is that we do here, what chiropractic is all about. Most people think that chiropractic is really about taking care of, when you have an ache or a pain, you go in and hopefully, after some care, your pain will go away and that's it. That's really not at all how chiropractic got started, and it's especially not how chiropractic is today, especially in this office here. So, hopefully after looking at or after hearing this information, you'll have a better understanding of why some parents might bring their kids in here if they have really bad ear infections, and after a short time getting adjusted, that those ear infections just go away, or why somebody with debilitating ache or pain or something that will come in and have that disappear, or why somebody with chronic coughs or colds will come in for care, and after only a few weeks of care, something that's been going on for potentially years has just all of a sudden clears up. Now I'm going to be just straight up front with you and let you know I have no idea how to heal an ear infection. I have no idea how to take care of somebody's pain and get rid of it. Now that might sound silly, but bear with me here just a sec. What I do know how to do is how to remove interference in the body and allow the body to start healing itself, because that's where healing really comes from. And that's what we're going to go over today, is that we have within us this amazing healing power. You have within you this amazing intelligence that allows you to function and heal on your own. And if that power is able to express itself in your body, if that intelligence is able to control your body the way it's supposed to, your body's able to heal up from all sorts of things. So let's go ahead and get into that. And before we get into that aspect of it, I wanted to share with you that our current, what we call our current healthcare system, is really not a true healthcare system. It's actually a sick care system. Because if you were to go to your primary healthcare physician right now, your GP or your medical doctor, and you went in there and said, "Hey doc, I'm feeling great. What can you do to keep me feeling great?" What would you hear? Well, you'd probably get a look of puzzlement, or what? Like, I have no clue. And even if you went in there and said, "Hey, I'm not feeling well and I want to get better," well, what is it that will most likely be asked first? Well, what's wrong with you? And that's really what the focus of our current healthcare system is what's wrong with you? What is we're looking outside of ourselves for what is the cause of what's causing you to get sick, to be not feeling well, or not not be expressing health properly. But that's what healthcare has become. It's become really about disease and sickness, not about health. And I really think that's for one of the things is that we've been asking the wrong questions for 1,000 years. Instead of asking what is it that should be, or that's causing us to get sick, we should be looking at what is it that actually causes us to be healthy, to express health properly. And that actually reminds me of a story I'd like to share with you. There's a young man who's walking down the street. He's just out there window shopping. He's listening to his headphones. He's got these big noise canceling headphones, a nice pair of headphones, listening to his iPod, and just walking along the street. And he's looking in a window, sees his reflection, and he sees his hair's getting shaggy. And he decides, you know what, I better go get a haircut. So he goes to to the nearest barber, walks in there and says, "Hey, can I get a haircut?" And the barber says, "Yeah, absolutely. Come on, I've got a seat available right now, so come on, have a seat." So he goes to take off his headphones and says, "Oh, no, you got to leave these on." And the barber says, "Well, that's odd, but okay, sure, I can give you a haircut still." So he starts cutting his hair, and a little bit into it, he notices that the young man, he falls asleep. And so he says, "Well, maybe take off his headphones and get a better haircut that way. He's asleep now anyway." So he takes off his headphones, finishes the haircut, and then he goes to wake him up after, but he can't. He realizes he's dead. So, he calls the authorities, and after all the hoopla is over, the coroner comes in and the, police and everything. He notices that the headphones are still there, and he says, well, I wonder what he was listening to. It's kind of a nice pair anyway. So he pops them on, and what does he hear? He says, breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. It's kind of, it's a funny story. We laugh at that, right? But what I want to share with you with that story is actually the whole basis of really of what this talk is all about, and what really our care in our office is all about. Now, thank God we don't have to think about, breathing on a regular basis. Could you imagine if, we had to take care of, if we had to think about any one of the billions of processes that go on at any one time in our bodies? If we had to think about that, we'd all be dead, right? Yeah. So thankfully, we don't have to do that because of that amazing intelligence within our bodies. So, in chiropractic, we, that intelligence, we refer to it as your innate. So it's got a lot of different names. Some people call it your God within. Some people will call it your soul, your chi, your life energy. It's got a lot of different names that we refer to it, but it's that part of us that's not physical that animates our bodies. In chiropractic, we call it your innate. Now, the word innate is, the root word, it actually means inborn. In other words, it doesn't have to be learned. Now, the opposite of innate would be your educated intelligence. So your educated intelligence is, everything that you have to learn. So, your innate takes care, of everything, from learning how to talk, how to walk, and all that. But your educated is parts of, like learning how to read or drive a car, or, things that you have to, pay attention and learn and grasp. And one of the things that happened is that along the way in our humanity, we educatedly learned about health, and we have kind of taken over. Instead of trusting in our own bodies to do what it needs to do to heal, we've started, thinking that, we know what the body needs, and we're really, constantly searching outside of ourselves for health. And that, I think, is a major problem with our current society, and we're seeing it with, with the numbers. And when you look at the statistics out there, as far as the top causes of death in North America right now, it used to be that, heart disease and cancer were, number one, number two. There's actually a new number one now, and it's been like that for, several decades now. But the number one cause of preventable death in Canada and the US is our current healthcare system. How crazy is that? Now, that's simply because when we use the current system, and believe me, I'm not one that's, I'm not here to bash medicine or tell you that, that the current system is totally worthless, because that's absolutely not true. What that system is great for is crisis care and disease management. But when it comes to healthcare, it's actually a very dangerous system, and it kills more people than any other thing combined. So, there's a book that recently came out called Death by Medicine, and they've shown in there, they've done a lot of research on the statistics and causes of death. And they found that in North America alone, there's about, if you filled up 10 jumbo jets of planes, 10 of those crashing per day is how many people die from our current healthcare system. Now that's crazy. If that were happening in the airline industry, do you think they'd allow you to, they'd allow the planes to keep flying? Well, no, they would halt the system right away and figure out what's going on. But when we're, in our healthcare system, we're at a war with disease, and when we're at a war, we kind of have this, this idea that, there's going to be casualties, and, that's just part of it. But what about if we started, thinking about it differently, and started trusting a little more in our inborn wisdom? Because we all kind of start out here. I want to start out at the beginning here, and we all start out pretty much the same. Well, exactly the same, really. What do we have here? We've got a sperm and an egg, right? These two come together and create one whole cell. So we got, in here, we've got, half the genetic material from mom, half the genetic material from dad. So that's your DNA. That in there is your genetic health potential. That's basically the blueprints of what's going on. And very similar to, you know, an acorn. If I had an acorn and I were to plant that in the soil, you know, give it what it needs, you know, a nice healthy soil, and, you know, give it sunlight and carbon dioxide and water, you know, the things it needs, what would that become, you know, as long as it doesn't die first? An oak tree, right? And not just any tree, but an oak tree. Will it ever become a maple tree? No, it won't. And, you know, nor will it ever become a fir tree. You know, it's always going to become an acorn tree. Now, why is that? It's because, you know, within that acorn, it has all the coating it needs in order to become a mighty oak tree, right? And I think that's absolutely incredible. You know, that when that happens, you know, an oak tree happens. When a dog and a dog come together, it creates another dog. When a human and a human come together, it creates another human. Because from this one cell, from this genetic health potential, 280 days later, what's going to happen? That's about 9 months, by the way. You're going to have a brand new human. So that one cell is going to go from the 1 to about 70 trillion cells. And not only 70 trillion cells, but 70 trillion different cells. Right? So some will clump together and become liver cells, some will clump together and become heart cells, some will clump together and become kidney cells, and so on and so forth, right? Now, you know, that process, you know, that intelligence that allowed that to happen, you're innate. Now, does that leave you when you die? Or sorry, not when you die, when you're born? No, absolutely not, right? It's there with you. So that same power that caused us to become a fully functional human being from one cell is the same power that's in us at any one time. And it's there to, you know, to cause us to function without having to think about it, to be able to heal when, you know, when things start breaking down. So if we take, you know, remember the story there about our young man that was at the barber. So if we take, you know, his freshly dead body compared to you or I, what's the difference? We have life flowing through us, right? We've got an energy, an intelligence within us, right? What's going to happen to the dead body that's not going to happen to us? Well, you know, as soon as we die, what starts happening? We start decomposing, right? We start to, you know, the decay process starts happening. Now, you know, so, you know, I don't know exactly how that process happens, but, you know, we start to break down to our simplest parts, okay? And there's a force out there, there's a universal force that's actually acting on the body to cause it to decompose. Now, is that decomposition force acting, you know, does it only start acting on us when we die, or is it acting on us right away? So, you know, does that force only come, you know, when we die, or is it acting on us at any one time? And the reason we don't decompose is because maybe there's something within us that's preventing that process from happening. Exactly. So that's what your innate intelligence is all about. Your innate counteracts that destructive force of the universe. Okay, and the thing is that if anything were to disconnect you from, you know, from your intelligence, from your internal wisdom, from that power, then that decomposition process can start acting on you. So you might be wondering, well, what the heck does this have to do with chiropractic? Well, let me tell you. So this is where I want to kind of make that leap for you, so that, you know, you can kind of understand how this could maybe, you know, apply to a healthcare setting. Well, my job as a chiropractor is to work with this force, with this innate intelligence within your body. Okay. So when we go back to our, you know, our cell here that's developing, so after that one cell starts to divide and divide and divide, we had said that, you know, these cells need to start to become different, right? So we've got a whole clump of cells here that's, you know, all basically identical cells, but eventually they need to become different. Now, what do you think is the first type of cell to become different? It's actually your nerve system cells. So your nervous system starts out as a little tube, so it kind of makes a little streak in the cell. If you're looking at it with a microscope, you see a little streak start to form. That's called your neural tube, and it's basically your whole nerve system developing into, you know, one little package. From there, you know, part of that clumps together and becomes your brain. Some will become what after that? Your spinal cord, which travels off of your brain. And then from there, you have branches coming off, which are your nerves, which exit out, right? And your nervous system is so complex and so interconnected that it literally goes to every single part of your body. Everything is attached to the nerve system. Every other part of your body after this grows off of your nervous system. So your nervous system in that sense is the master controller. It's how this power flows through your body to, to animate you, to connect you. So from there, you get some cells become heart cells, some will become digestive system cells, liver cells. Now, I'm not an artist, naturally, but bear with me here. And some will become hair cells, muscle cells, so on and so forth, right? So, right from the beginning, your nervous system is what runs the show. And as a chiropractor, that's really what we focus on, because, your brain, right, is the master controller. And really important piece to remember here is that your brain doesn't just magically control your body. It has to have a constant connection of electricity through your body. Okay? Now, it's like this light bulb here. So I've got this light bulb, and if we were to trace this wire here all the way back as far as we can go, where would we end up? Right, at the power dam, right? So here, in the Kootenays, we have, big dams that allow the water to generate power for us. Now that generator of power is like what in our bodies? Our brains, right? So your brain is like that power generator. And it needs to communicate, needs to have a constant flow of electricity to all parts of your body. Just like, in this case here, for this light bulb to work, I need a constant flow of electricity. So right now, this light bulb is working at 100%. And by the way, when it comes to healthcare, how do we define healthcare? Because if we're going to work with this, and we'll get back to our light bulb in just a moment here, but how do we define health? So most people think that health is like what most of you will come to because this is the way we've been trained, but it's, a lot of people think it's the way you feel. If you're feeling good, or, you don't have disease in your body, well then you're healthy. Well, that unfortunately is actually kind of a dangerous way to live, and I'll get a little more into that in a moment, because the true definition of what health is when everything is functioning properly. So in our case here, health is defined as 100% function. So when your body's working the way it's supposed to, you are in a state of health. Now, when we get back to our, our light bulb, so when everything is connected properly, this light bulb is working at 100%. So in this wire here, how much potential electricity do I have flowing through here right now? Well, it has to be 100% as well, right? Now, if I were to, cut off the source of power here, I've got right now a totally inoperable light bulb, right? It's not functioning. It's got no power going to it. So this would be like a dead light bulb. So if we can imagine in our body, let's pretend this is your heart, and your heart right now is dead. It has no power going to it. In here though, in the wire, how much potential do I have? I still have 100%, right? So if I were to cut this wire right now, what would happen to me? Well, I'd get a pretty big shock, wouldn't I? Because there's still, full power in this cord, but it's just not getting to the light bulb because I've got a switch here stopping it. That'd be like if I were to go into your body and, if we were to open up your chest cavity and cut the nerve to your heart. Now, there's multiple nerves, but if you can imagine, just pretend there's only one nerve going there, and now we're going to cut that main source, what would happen to your heart? Would it work better or worse? Oh, worse, naturally, right? Instead, what if I were to just put a clamp on it? Better or worse? Naturally worse, right? Same thing, if in the body, the nerves that go to every part of your body, in order to come from your brain to get to your heart, for example, we've got here, this is a model of your spine, and this is, as you're probably aware, this is what I work with as a chiropractor. And the reason I do is not so much because of the bones themselves, but because of the intimate relationship your spine has with your nervous system, as we're talking about. Now, your brain up here, as we said, needs to have a constant communication through to every part of your body. That happens by way of your spinal cord, which travels inside your spine here. There's a hole coming out of your skull, which is an extension of your brain. Your spinal cord travels all the way down inside your spine here. From there, you have your nerves, which come off of your spinal cord, right? Now, these holes coming out is made up from, half the hole is made up from the bone below and half from the bone above. Now, what happens is these bones here are movable. There's 24 movable bones. When everything's lined up properly, we have that full connectivity. So like we were talking about with our power example, now what if one of these bones shift out of place and gets stuck? That's like putting that clamp on the nerve, right? This is called a subluxation, by the way, which I'll write here on the board in just a moment. But, so if your body gets subluxated, that causes interference in the flow of electricity in your body, interference in the nerves. So that's like, you know, if we were to look back at our light bulb here, and let's say, you know, we've got 100% here, let's say this is 50%. So I've got 50% function right now going to that heart. Now, again, in this cord here, I still have how much? 100%, right? Still have 100% function, yet I only have 50% here. So this would be like what we would call a sick, symptomatic light bulb. And now, I can do, you know, I can try to rub this light bulb as much as I want. I can put, you know, replace it, put a new one in. I can do, you know, whatever I want, but it's not going to get any brighter, is it? Until I restore the power there, this light bulb will only work as well as the power that's getting to it. Right? So in order to restore full function to this light bulb, I need to remove that interference and allow that light to start shining brighter again. Same thing in your body. If your body is not properly connected to that source energy in your body, to your innate, then your body cannot function the way it's supposed to. And that decaying process we were talking about is able to start acting on your body. And that's where, you know, we start allowing for sickness and disease to start acting in your body. So we talked about the subluxation. Let me write that word down for you. So it's a big, long, complicated word. So let me just read here. So, subluxation. So again, what a subluxation is that disconnection. It's when the bones in your spine shift out of normal alignment and get stuck. So, you know, when these bones, they can either rotate out of place, they can tilt out of place, they can, you know, shift, you know, forward or backwards. So if these bones get stuck, that's causing pressure on the nerves, interfering with that communication from your brain to your body cells. And what that does is it puts us in a state of what's called, in chiropractic, the early writings of chiropractic, they talked about a state of dis-ease. Looks familiar, doesn't it? We know this, you know, as the word disease, right? But this is really the root words of it. Dis meaning lack of ease. So ease is the normal function in our body, our default state of health, when everything's working properly the way it's supposed to. When we're disconnected, when something's out of alignment, that puts you in a state of dis-ease, lack of ease. And when that happens, you know, to the degree that you're separated from your, you know, from your intelligence, from your internal healing power, that's the degree that your body will start to decompose, to start malfunctioning and become diseased. Now the problem is that most of us wait until what before we start seeking care? Until there's a symptom, right? Until we're not feeling well, or until, you know, things hurt. So, you know, until, you know, in the case of our light bulb, until things are only at 50%. So, you know, as our body gets more and more disconnected, it becomes dimmer. And typically symptoms start arising at about the 50 to 60% function range. And that, you know, means that the disease process can start to develop for quite a long time before we do anything about it. And that's really, you know, it's not anyone's fault per se, but that's just the way we've been taught. You know, like we said, we've educatedly learned about health, and we've learned, you know, from our, you know, doctors, our mothers and fathers, and, you know, drug ads on TV. We're learning about, you know, we need all these drugs in our bodies and things like that. And you know, the pharmaceutical industry is a powerful, powerful company, or powerful industry, I should say. And, you know, they spend billions of dollars every year, and you know, just to advertise to us, you know, to tell us that you need these drugs, and you watch enough drug ads, you're going to start believing them. And that's what's happening in our system, is that there's, you know, the exact numbers I don't have, so don't quote me on these, but it's something along the lines of about 150,000 people in North America die every year from properly prescribed medications and surgeries. They have a reaction to them in hospitals and die. So, you know, they're very, very dangerous. Now, are they life-saving at times? Yes. When it comes to crisis care, life-saving. But when we start using drugs for health, that's a very dangerous thing, because that's not what they were ever intended for, but that's what we've been taught, right? So we need, you know, we really need to start trusting more in our own bodies and realizing that our bodies are made to heal themselves. So when you're subluxated, so when when your body's disconnected, this is where I step in. This is where chiropractic fits into this whole model. Is that as a chiropractor, my job is to locate and find these areas of blockage, these areas of disconnect. And when we find those, we do adjustments to start removing that interference and restoring that balance in your body to take pressure off your nerve system. And when that happens, that's when we start seeing the quote-unquote miracles, where the kids' ear infections just all of a sudden go away after having them for 5-6 years. The chronic coughs and conditions, asthma, allergies, just all of a sudden disappear. I had one woman come in to me she was about almost 70 years old, and had chronic pain for 40 years of her life, where it just got worse and worse all the time. When she came into me initially, she was barely able to walk, and after about 6 months of care, she started running again. She was out running at 70 years old, and to this day she's been with me for about 4 years now, and still comes in every couple weeks. Initially we were seeing her 3 times a week to get those subluxations taken care of and start retraining her spine and nerve system. She's now coming in for just weekly or bi-weekly checkups, just to make sure her nerve system stays tuned up so she can continue living her life in a vitalistic way. Now, I don't want you to think that, oh wow, what a great healer you are, because it's not me doing the healing, and I want you to to understand that. My job is to remove that interference, restoring that state of ease so that your body can start doing what it does best. So these, again, these quote-unquote miracles are simply the body doing what it's supposed to do, and that's take care of itself, start heal itself. And this, this subluxation process can happen as early as childhood, the birth process even. That's why we take care of so many kids in this office. We're a high percentage pediatric practice. We take care of a lot of kids. Just last week, I went and took care of a 14-hour-old baby. They had, the parents had been under care, and with their older daughter, they've been under care for the last 6 months, and they wanted to make sure that the rest of her pregnancy went well. And then they called me, the night after she delivered her second daughter, and she said, can you come in and just check my baby to make sure that she's fully connected? And her labor went awesome. After 5 hours from start to finish, she delivered this nice healthy baby, and even with a nice natural delivery, she just needed a minor adjustment in her upper neck. It was it was subluxated from the birth process, but it wasn't anything serious. So by catching it that early, we're able to assure that she is able to reach her her God-given potential of health as much as possible. We talked about that in the early part there. You get your genetic material from mom and dad there. That's your genetic health blueprint kind of thing, your health potential. That there is between you and God, or whatever you believe in, right? I can't change that. What I can change is to allow for your body to function as best as your body will function. And how we do that is by removing the interference, by removing the subluxations through the adjustment process. And that's when we start to see those miracles again. But again, it's not because I'm the one doing the healing. I'm simply allowing your body to do what it does best, and that's heal itself. Okay? So again, it's if you do have children, I sometimes joke around, but I also don't say this very lightly, but I sometimes say, if you have kids, I'm using you to get to your kids. And I don't say that lightly, actually, because that's really the goal of our practice here, is to allow for people of all ages, and kids especially, because if we're going to make a big impact in the health of our community, we need to start with the young ones and start teaching them how to take care of their bodies at a young age, and allow them to really not fall down the same trap that so many people, a lot of the baby boomers are living a very poor quality of life now because of just the way we've been taught. And one of the top killers, again, we talked about the current healthcare system being number one, but heart disease is the next one there. And that kills more people than anybody else combined. And one of the scary statistics there is that any idea what in 40% of cases of heart disease the first symptom is? In 40%, it's actually heart attack causing death. So death really is the first symptom. Now that's pretty scary, and we all know of somebody like that that they might know, you may so know somebody personally, or have heard of somebody that, was quote unquote feeling good, and they were out there maybe shoveling the driveway or something, and all of a sudden had this heart attack and died. And everybody's like, I thought he was healthy. I thought, he was feeling good. So that means that, a huge amount of people are dying feeling pretty good. And that's why basing your health on the way you feel versus the way you're functioning is a very dangerous way to live. Because in most cases, symptoms come very, very late in the game. So, and the reason that is that your nervous system, is so complex and so amazing. But one of the things that a lot of people don't realize is that only about 10% of your entire nervous system is devoted to the way we're feeling. The other 90% is devoted to function. So if you're basing your health strictly on the way you feel, you're only looking at a very small percentage of how your body's actually working. So getting your nervous system checked and tuned up is something that I can't stress enough how important that really is. It's something we recommend for, everybody. Plain and simple. If you have a spine, get it checked, And again, this won't be the right office for everybody, but if this message really resonates with you, and if the story of how chiropractic works resonates with you, you're going to love it here in this office. It's, because we are amazing at what we do. And what I do, my singular purpose really is to keep you connected to your source, to remove that interference, to allow you to express your full health potential, to allow you to express who you're meant to be.